You're welcome back. It is 9:01. Kenny Cunningham is with us this Wednesday morning. Kenny, how are you?
Morning, lads. All good.
Let's start with the late game last night, because you were chatting to the lads already about the early games. Leicester against Arsenal, pretty good game. We had Gary Breen on a Monday morning after the win against Wolves, and he was saying there's positive signs, but he has huge reservations about where Arsenal still are defensively. Things have got better though, haven't they? Even in the context of their defence last night, they looked a little less shambolic than they did 2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I think they've been better since Arteta came in terms of from an organisational point of view. You can tell he's quite a diligent coach, and I think there's been a certain structure to what Arsenal have done since he's come into the football club. Hasn't always been hugely successful. Form has been a little bit up and down, but clearly there's been an improvement there in terms of the basic organisation of the team. Certainly from a defensive point of view, I think he is limited in terms of the players he has available to him, particularly across the defensive line. I'm sure Breeny would have alluded to that. But I'm reasonably impressed with what I'm seeing from him. I think there's grounds for optimism there, particularly in relation to a lot of the forward-thinking players in the Arsenal setup, the young players in particular, some great talent there. But it's going to be a slow burn. It's going to be a slow road back, I think, for the Arsenal faithful over the next couple of years. Just have to show a bit of patience.
How important is it then that Mikel Arteta is really trying to lay down a marker in terms of the culture at the club? Like, we've seen a story this week that Matteo Guendouzi has been training on his own for the last 2 weeks, ever since that Brighton spat, and perhaps the lack of professionalism he showed on that occasion and the lack of an apology forthcoming. Whether or not it's right or wrong to be that harsh on a young player like that, it is still Mikel Arteta showing that the culture is hugely important to the club, and that can only be a positive in the long term, even if Guendouzi has to eventually leave the club.
Yeah, it's difficult to know, Owen, an individual situation like that from the outside looking in. I'll be very surprised if he's taken that stance, Arteta, and ostracised him from the group for a 2 week period, just off the back of that one incident at Brighton. If there was a combination of those things, maybe there was a question mark about his attitude of the player, how he's carrying himself around the training ground, how he's applying himself in training on a day-to-day basis. That's obviously a little bit different. Gives the whole thing a little bit more context. I think in that situation, you have to be seen to be taking a stance. I think the other players are looking to the manager saying, well, look, are you going to let this happen? You know, is he going to get away with this? So at some stage, you have to put your foot down. But generally speaking, I'm a fan of the young kid. He is a young kid. You have to remember that he's still developing, still growing as a person and as a player as well. And my gut reaction would be to stick with him. I think any young player, I hate to see any young player leave a football club kind of cast aside to a certain extent. I think all the best coaches, managers kind of put the work in with a player and try to turn him around in the kind of short to medium term. So I hope it isn't the end of his Arsenal career, because I think he's got real talent, the lad. And I think they could do with him that kind of bit of energy that he brings, a bit of bite to that central midfield area. It's been an issue for Arsenal for quite some time, but he may have his reasons, Arteta. But he needs to get it right, because you can get that kind of call wrong on sometimes. If you're seen to be kind of coming down hard on a young player, and the player actually has a sympathy of the majority of the players in the dressing room, that can be different. That can be counterproductive. That can go against you as a manager. If the perception amongst your players are, well, yeah, okay, he stepped out of line, but really, Gaffer, that's a little bit too much. So that can kind of go against you. You know, that can turn a number of the players against you as a manager. So you have to be careful. Every individual situation is different. But he's a new manager, Arteta. I understand the point that you're making in terms of trying to put a stamp as authority at the football club. But, you always have to be aware, I think, any decision you make as a manager, the effect that has, how it's perceived by the whole group, not just that one individual.
Sure. Kenny, let's assume that this isn't just because of the incident, and that you're right, there's something deeper going on, and he's trying to teach him a lesson. When you're in a situation like Arteta is in, there's a short window where you get to establish what that culture is going to be. You can see Guendouzi thriving at one of the super clubs that he's being linked with, where, for example, he's not thrust into the team straight away, and he's not being asked to be a leader. Or in a dressing room, for example, in 3 seasons' time, when Arteta has laid down exactly what the rules are, and everybody knows this is his team and he's the boss, and everybody has to do what he has to say. But very early on in your managerial career, if there's any kind of distraction from a young player, he might be good enough to be in your team, but he might also not be the right character for this squad when you're just building what that culture is supposed to be.
Yeah, I'm never quite sure, Jared, the word culture, like, you know what I mean? It's one of those kind of buzzwords, I suppose. Like, I'm never quite sure exactly what it means. It means different things to different people, I think. But I'd like to think of in the modern game, like, you get the impression like a lot of the kind of dressing rooms a little bit maybe sterile, kind of lack of personality. And I think that's kind of to the detriment of the dressing room, in all honesty. I think as a manager, you can be a strong manager. You can rule. You can manage with authority, but you can also create an environment where you encourage, a kind of an environment at the football club where, players feel comfortable to express an opinion and show a bit of personality around the place. It's not kind of computer-like in terms you come into the training ground, do your work on the training pitch, get your work done in the gym, physical conditioning. It's kind of a robotic existence at the football club. Nobody questions the manager. You do, you're told, this is the culture. We want to improve. We want to get better. You're professionals. That type of thing. I mean, there's a certain level of that where you think, yeah, that's to be applauded. But for me personally, I always enjoyed a dressing room where, yeah, you had a certain type of work ethic, but the manager allowed players a little bit of license in terms of how they kind of reacted to other people, the kind of relationships they had, the kind of personalities they had. At times, maybe they stepped over the line on occasion. But I think that type of vibrant kind of dressing room was a dressing room which I kind of enjoyed. We always hear about lack of personalities in the dressing rooms these days. Probably no surprise when you're constantly hearing about a certain culture. Managers want to impose a certain culture at a football club and a work ethic and those type of things. At times I get a sense of managers don't strike the right balance between those two things. And the best dressing rooms for me have both of those things. A kind of fierce work ethic amongst the players who want to win, want to be competitive, want to achieve things. But also you have those real kind of, outlandish personalities, strong personalities in the dressing room who will voice an opinion, who kind of will fall out on occasion with themselves and with other people. So not really so much a right or wrong for me on that question.
Right, that's interesting. Is that something that perhaps existed in the Liverpool dressing room over the last couple of years? The idea of a kind of a very hard-working culture, but at the same time there is sort of a lightheartedness to things. I accept that can always seem the way when a team is winning, and perhaps the greatest judge of a team is when they're actually got their back up and they're trying to get back up the table.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. Certainly, there's a strong personalities in that Liverpool dressing room, and you'd imagine there's players there who would be willing to voice an opinion on occasion in the dressing room, on the training pitch, or around the football club. I get the sense that's a very vocal dressing room at Liverpool. Not too many quiet voices around the place. People voice an opinion, and not just about going around falling out with people and having arguments all the time. It's just having strong personalities there, like vocal people who want to have a conversation and who are kind of, really kind of energise the kind of the dressing room. And there's a kind of bit of a fun element to that as well. I mean, you don't go into work every single day. It can't be too serious, your work environment as well. And probably similar for yourselves. You go into work every day. Yes, you want to work. You've got to be professional how you approach things. But at the end of the day, you want to be able to just chill out a little bit as well. And, share a conversation with somebody you like, laugh with somebody, that type of thing as well. So it's all about the right type of environment at a football club. It's slightly different from club to club. But for me, it's kind of a happy mix of all of those things, which is a kind of an ideal environment that you're looking for. So I'm hoping that's what Arteta's looking to do at Arsenal. But I sometimes get a sense in the modern game that with some managers, young managers as well, it's all about the process. It's all about the project. Yeah, the culture around the football club. And I always question sometimes exactly what that means.
We did want to get your take on Liverpool and what they might do in the off-season, Kenny. We're going to have a look at their depth chart. Go for it. What did he say?
Nothing.
Nothing. So thanks a million for your time this morning, Kenny. So the depth chart, Liverpool. So perhaps if we wanted to split hairs, we might have to get you splitting hairs a small bit this morning. What would Liverpool have to do in the off season? Like, it's a situation here where the team close to picks itself, the first 11. So we're going to be looking at who's option 2 quite a bit here today. We'll just start very briefly. In goals, Adrian is obviously the nailed-on starter there. He's got another 4 years on his contract. The question is, what happens if Adrian gets injured again, or if Alisson gets injured again, I should say. Sorry. Adrian is the backup. That is the question we're asking here. Do they need a new backup goalkeeper? He's got 1 year left on his deal, Adrian. He's not at Alisson's level, clearly. Is he the required level to even be a backup at Liverpool at the moment?
No, I think that's a fair question, Alan, because I don't think there's too many positions even in the squad, let alone the starting 11, where you can really argue that Liverpool are at a disadvantage or there's any kind of slight weakness. I think probably the goalkeeping position, the number 2, as you suggested, is probably that one. You've always got to think, manager, like that kind of worst case scenario. You can't think Alisson's going to be fit, presume he's going to be fit for the whole of next season or the season after that. So you have to make contingency plans where if he's out for a significant period of time, I know he missed about a month, was it month, 6 weeks, or start to kind of last season. It wasn't a huge amount of time, particularly in terms of game time. So you have to make allowances for that, and you have to look at Adrian. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I think potentially they could strengthen in that area of the pitch, but it's easier said than done. And easy to say, I just go and get a better goalkeeper in, but there's all the top goalkeepers want to play. It's as simple as that. No top goalkeeper is going to come in and sign for Liverpool as a number 2 and play second fiddle to Alisson and play a small quota of games during the course of the year. So you've got to accept that the keeper who comes in as a number 2 to Alisson, there's going to be a certain drop-off in terms of ability. It has to be, because otherwise he's not going to come into the football club and accept second billing. Can you get a keeper of better quality than Adrian? Possibly so. There might be keepers out there. You've got to throw a lot of money at them, obviously, to keep them happy. They're happy to keep the bench warm for the majority of the season. So it's going to take a big lump in terms of possibly transfer fee and certainly wages to keep them sweet, keep them happy. But I'd agree with you. I think potentially out there's a goalkeeper of a better quality than Adrian, who if they needed to lean on for a significant portion next season, that could be pivotal in terms of the league title next season. So yeah, I would agree with you. Probably the only area for me, the Liverpool team, that we could probably have that kind of discussion in terms of maybe strengthening in that area of the pitch.
If we move on to centre-backs, Kenny, consensus has emerged throughout the season that Joe Gomez is the partner for Virgil van Dijk. They are the starting centre-halves for Liverpool. You drop down to Lovren and Matip as your backups at this stage, and it is not like a drop-off to Adrian at this point. Matip has proven himself to be a consistent performer himself. Does that mean you don't need to sign? Does that mean Lovren and Matip playing behind Joe Gomez and Virgil van Dijk in your depth chart is where Liverpool can stay, and staying static in that position is fine this summer?
Yeah, I think so. As long as those 2 players are happy to do that, that's always the key. They're very experienced players, those 2 players, and I'd actually be a little bit surprised if both of those players were happy to turn up at Liverpool next season, knowing that Gomez and Van Dijk are Klopp's first pairing. Different if you're a young pro starting off, 19, 21 years of age, around the squad, and you're looking at Gomez, Van Dijk, you're still learning, you're still developing, think, well, I'll accept this for another 2-3 years. This is a great environment to be in. I'm only going to get better knowing that you've got 10, 12 years ahead of you still. That's not the case with Matip, and certainly not Lovren. So wouldn't surprise me again, as successful as Liverpool have been, potentially one of those players, maybe even Lovren. You'd like to think possibly Matip just ahead of Lovren in the pecking order at the moment, Owen. So it wouldn't surprise me, in my experience, Lovren must have knocked on Klopp's door in the summer, in the off-season, say, look, I've really enjoyed it here. It's been absolutely amazing, fantastic experience. But at my age, I just want to play now. I've got a couple of years left at a reasonably high level. I just want to play football. It's not going to happen for me here. Let's be realistic. We're not going to fall out over it. Just let me take a reasonable fee from me and let me go. So that'd be the only occasion I suggested Liverpool needs to go maybe and reinforce in terms of backup at centre-half. But certainly if Lovren and Matip are happy to stay and play and be a part of the squad, yeah, absolutely no need to strengthen in that area for me.
It's interesting then when you look at the full-backs, because if you've got consensus in the centre-backs, there's absolutely no question when it comes to the full-backs that Andy Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold are your 2 there for the foreseeable future. You've got the likes of Nico Williams and Hoover as your backups to Trent Alexander-Arnold. They don't really have any backup to Andy Robertson on the left. Could this ever become an issue? I'm clutching at straws here, but could this ever become an issue where players have such a stranglehold on the jersey where even just an inkling of complacency might come in? Because nobody, as I say, comes close to taking the jersey off these 2 guys at the moment at Liverpool.
No, you're right. And that's where Klopp's got to come into the equation in terms of knowing your players. The good managers, they understand their players, the mentality of their players, what drives them, can they trust them? If there's not that kind of competition for their place, is there going to be a drop-off? That complacency is going to set in. That's all about understanding your players as a manager, having your finger on the pulse. And if Klopp is assured that in Trent Alexander and Robertson, he doesn't have to worry about that. Oh, and they're so focused, so driven. Doesn't matter if they're being pushed or not. The level of performance is going to be the same. then he doesn't really have to worry about that. He's got some good options. I really like the lad Nico Williams. Every time I've seen him play, he's really impressed me. Certainly one for the future. I'd have no problems him coming in for an extended period in the team. The left back's more an interesting one. Again, you could make an argument there on in terms of spending money, spending 10 million on literally just a backup left back. And paying him a wage. But I think actually within the squad, with the likes of James Milner and even Gomez, you remember Gomez came into the Liverpool team originally. He came in and actually played left back. Owen, so you can make an argument for Gomez's versatility across the back four at centre half, right back, and left back is actually sufficient with the likes of James Milner and Nico Williams to actually cover any kind of potential problems which they might have across that defensive line without actually going out and spending.
There was a period when Spurs were essentially, they had 4 fullbacks and they kind of interchanged, and Pochettino did it so that everybody could play super high intensity week in, week out. Is there any point where they just go, Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold are so important to the width of the team and the how we actually pin teams back and how we create space, that we want them to be able to go full bore for 60% of the games, and actually we rest them for 40% of the games, so that it's elongating their career and making sure that they are able to go high intensity. So that it's not just about picking your best team all the time. You're literally giving them rest periods during the season.
Yeah, absolutely, Ger. And again, that comes back to the manager and the support staff, the physical conditioning people, knowing all your players. They'll have the computer data on all those players in terms of their physiology. They should know exactly what they're capable of. And every player is different in terms, even his physical, mental makeup. Ger, every player is different. Other players are absolutely right. You could make that argument. Look, we can only get 60% of the games out of this fella full pelt. We've got to be careful. We've got to rotate. We've got to take him out, put him back in. We've got to be really careful with Rappham and Cotton Wool. Other players, and not so much. I mean, the volume of games those two players, Robertson and Trent Alexander, have played has been absolutely phenomenal. But you're right, Jerry, in terms of the medium to long term, you've got to be looking, is there going to be a detrimental effect maybe to that further down the line? I think there's an argument for kind of taking a minute in and out of the team as of when. The amount of cup competitions that Liverpool play and maybe targeting certain Premier League games in terms of taking them out. But you're right when you say, Jared, in terms of their importance to the team, those two fullbacks is quite unique in terms of how Liverpool play, how advanced they get those fullbacks high up the pitch, and how dependent they are in terms of their delivery into the box for goal scoring, to create goal scoring opportunities for other people. You really know other two fullbacks. You can argue, well, bring another two fullbacks and play 50-50 the games. I can't think of another two fullbacks who could have the kind of impact on that Liverpool team in terms of goals scored and certainly goals chances created than those two fullbacks. So, yeah, I think it's a fair argument, but at the moment, I'd hang my hat on those two players. But I'd keep an eye on it. Even Robertson's performances of late, the Robertson performance at Manchester City was interesting, just because we were just not used to seeing that kind of below-par performance from a Liverpool fullback. Some of Robertson's decision-making in those games, getting dragged into areas he shouldn't have gone, getting done in 1-2s and costing his team a couple of goals. Even small things like that, you wonder, maybe just a little bit of physical fatigue maybe creeping into Robertson's game there. So even that, I'm sure the Liverpool staff would be assessing that, thinking, do you know what, maybe we just have to look after him maybe a little bit more than Alexander-Arnold. He's a little bit different type of a beast. Maybe we've got to, next season, maybe we've got to protect him a little bit more, Robertson, in certain games, at certain moments during the season. But like I said, I think the answer's already within the squad. I suppose that's what I'm saying, with the likes of Milner, Gomez's versatility, Nico Williams, etc. I really feel the answer's already there within the squad.
Let's move on to the midfield. So it's an interesting one that this has been the area where most of the talk has surrounded Liverpool in terms of going into the transfer market. Thiago Alcantara has been linked to the club. So you probably have your first choice three, Kenny, I presume, as Fabinho, Wijnaldum and Henderson. But at the same time, you do have a couple of potential bolters next season who have bolted in the past in Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain and Naby Keita. I think there's probably still more to come from those two players, and there's a good chance that more will come. Do they need to dip their foot into the water here? Do they need to go and get somebody like Alcantara to actually come to the club to ensure that the standards don't drop in midfield? Wijnaldum now has got 1 year left in his contract, by the way, so that could become an issue down the line.
No, well, I don't see the Thiago one at all, to be honest with you. Right. He's a fine player. He's a wonderful footballer, but the way Liverpool play and how they operate, I don't see how he fits into that Liverpool team whatsoever. You could argue he could operate at the base of the midfield three, Thiago, in terms of being that kind of quarterback, but he can't defend. You can't go into the Liverpool team with that holding midfield position not being able to defend. He's not really a number 8, Thiago, either, in terms of playing that advanced role higher up the pitch. So that's a no-go for me. I mean, the argument's redundant. They don't need it. They've got the option of Henderson and Fabinho in that holding midfield position. They can dovetail those two in that area of the pitch. Henderson has the versatility of actually playing that higher position, that number 8 role, higher up the pitch alongside Wijnaldum, you're right. And then they got the options of Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain as well. Curtis Jones as well is going to be an option in that area of the pitch going forward as well. James Milner and a push can come in there. So again, as long as the attitude of the players is spot on, as long as Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain are happy to get their heads down, work hard, and and look to push for more game time. Again, I could see, in my own experience, you could see a situation maybe Keita could knock on the talk about Lovren knocking on the managers, or maybe Keita could knock on the managers during the summer and say, look, you know what, this has been great, absolutely amazing, but I can't see myself getting the team here. It's so strong, the centre midfield area. I don't want to be playing 15, 20 games a season for the next 2 seasons. I'm in my prime here. I want to go and play again. So again, for me, that's the only situation where I'd envisage Klopp having to spend big in that area of the pitch. A lot of talk about Liverpool, how functional they are in that area of the pitch. Maybe not as creative. The kind of technical levels aren't on a par with Manchester City, and that's probably a fair point to be made in that respect. But it's all how the team actually functions, how they set up to play. So those type of players blend perfectly well in terms of how the Liverpool machine operates. So again, in terms of personnel, lads, I think it's absolutely perfect. I don't see the reason where you need to bring a player. There's plenty of options there for me. Curtis Jones as well could be one who really comes on strong at the start of the next season. So there's another option for the manager in that area of the pitch. So again, I just don't feel as if he needs to tweak too much in that area of the pitch. For me, again, is the answer. As long as the attitude of the players is spot on and Klopp gets a sense of the players, the focus is still there, that determination, that kind of ambition to go and win back-to-back titles and win more trophies and be the best and create a dynasty. As long as he gets a sense of that around the place, for me, there's almost no argument in terms of really strengthening that squad considerably.
Could you explain to us why exactly Thiago is a different sort of midfielder and why it will be a square peg in a round hole?
Well, for me, maybe this is more of a personal thing. Well, Liverpool play with that kind of V-shaped midfield. They play with a holding midfield at number 6 and 2 number 8, pretty much the same as a Manchester City. Now, we've kind of had the argument about Henderson and Fabinho last season, and it is an interesting argument. I think that it's not so much for me one player is better than the other. One player has different attributes to the other player. For me, Jordan Henderson is a better holding midfielder, better defensive attributes, and Fabinho. Fabinho's probably had a better all-rounded game, a better passer of the ball than Jordan Henderson. But I think they can both play in that area of the pitch. For me, Fabinho has enough defensive qualities to operate in that area of the pitch. Not as strong as I would like, and not as strong as Henderson's, but still very effective in that area of the pitch. Henderson can do that role as well. When I look at Thiago, and I've seen a lot of Thiago play, he's a brilliant technical player. Reminds me a little bit maybe Jorginho, and I'd have the same argument with Jorginho at Chelsea. For me, there's no future for Jorginho at Chelsea. If Chelsea want to win a league title, they can't win a league title where Jorginho playing that holding midfield for Chelsea. And Thiago's a similar player. Brilliant in terms of receiving the ball from the defensive line, getting on the half turn, and working the ball up the pitch, breaking the lines with his pass, and technically lovely array of pass, and ticks all those boxes in possession of the football when he's got the ball at his feet. But out of possession, I mean, he's not an athlete. He's not the most dynamic. Has got that defensive mindset in terms of sensing danger, cutting off channels, physically imposing himself, winning tackles, dropping into space, covering people, all of those things. And I think whatever league you play in, those type of attributes are important. For me, even more so in the Premier League. I think that type of holding midfielder with that kind of defensive mindset is absolutely paramount if you're going to be successful and go and win titles. Man City have had it with Fernandinho when they've won their league titles. You even look at the Leicester team, the likes of Kante and Drinkwater. Those type of players. Henderson as well. Fabinho has enough of that for me, just in terms of positional senses, and has enough to get by in terms of what's around them as well, in terms of the work ethic around them. So that's why Thiago, for me, as wonderful a footballer as he is, I don't see that fit at all, personally, him coming to Liverpool. If there was a centre midfield player, if you were to ask me if there's a player out there who could really elevate Liverpool wouldn't have to necessarily change how they play to accommodate him, it would be Kai Havertz, Leverkusen. For me, he's the one. I think if Klopp's going to spend big potentially over the next year or so, he's the type of player for me. I would sacrifice Naby Keita midfield. I would sell Naby Keita now for 30, 40 million and go and spend 80 million to get this fella in, because this fella for me is almost a complete play. Has that physical presence, 6'2", 6'3", good athlete, good, decent work ethic, but a high level of technical ability. Brilliant left-footed player, beautiful to watch, and a good box-to-box player. Engine gets into the box, good header of the ball, arrives late, can actually win a header and score goals. So that type of player, I think that's down the road. I don't think that'll happen now, but potentially if you were saying the next year or two, when's that next big money signing for Liverpool, that kind of elite player, where is he going to come in? For me, if you had to offer me a player now, would be him. It would be Havertz or Bayern Leverkusen in terms of really elevating that Liverpool squad. But again, for me, he's not a necessity at this moment in time. Probably won't be able to get him out of Leverkusen anyway.
Is it correct to say, Kenny, that the current piece in the jigsaw that they already have that would be most similar to him is Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain? Like, is it kind of an ability to play on the wing, but obviously Liverpool don't necessarily need that quality all the time, considering how set their right winger position is, that it's almost an attacking midfielder who has midfielder sensibilities? Yeah,
it's a good point about Oxlade-Chamberlain, that kind of versatility. You're seeing that in the modern game now, Owen, in terms of players who can operate in different positions, not only across the front line, but also one of those central midfield areas. Not too many of them around, people who can play in a midfield three, Owen, and also operate across to the front line as well. Oxlade-Chamberlain is one of those, can play in that advanced midfield area, can operate off the flanks as well. Havertz has got that kind of versatility as well, believe it or not. Yeah, so you're right. I think that's one of Liverpool's strengths as well, that kind of versatility in terms of Oxlade-Chamberlain can go into the front line as well. And if you want to take it on to Liverpool front line, you got the likes of Origi, Minamino. Minamino is a different type of player. Looks more like a number 10 for me. Not really ideally suited to one of those central midfield positions, or actually one of the wide positions, the way Liverpool play. Always wants to come on the inside really and play in the pocket. So he's a different type of beast to what they've already had, but still a good option to have off the bench. So for me, Liverpool's still got those good options in Origi, Minamino, Oxlade-Chamberlain. If you want to take out one of those front three, or you lose them for a period of time, and you still have decent options there in terms of players to bring into the squad. The young lad Harvey Ellis just signed a new contract as well. He could be one who could really bloom over the next 6 to 12 months. So if Klopp has confidence in those younger players coming through, no need for him to go and put his money in his wallet and go and spend the kind of money he needs to strengthen around the periphery of the squad. Again, for me, the answer could already be there in terms of the qualities of those younger players who are pushing to come through.
It's looking like, if you're looking at Kai Havertz price tags, it's looking between 80 to 105, 110 million pounds. Like, I mean, Chelsea have been linked with them as well. Whether or not they'll do a Werner Havertz double this window probably looks doubtful. So they might get away with waiting until next year. Hopefully a few more pounds are back in the coffers and they might be able to make a move for him then. He's contracted to Leverkusen until 2022. So you heard it here first, Havertz to Liverpool, although he has actually been linked with the club previously. Front three, Kenny, I presume this is going to be the quickest one of all. The front three picks themselves. The drop off to Minamino then, if you want to use him as the next best option across the front three, is that too significant a drop off in your view?
No, I don't think so. I think I wouldn't talk down Origi too much. Origi's probably the one for me best suited to operate in any of those front three positions. He can play down the middle or off the flank. Seems to have a good attitude, the lad, in terms of, spends a lot of time on the bench, but again shows the right attitude when he comes on the pitch. And that's important because if you're a forward player at Liverpool, your name's not Mo Salah, Firmino or Mane, you're just not going to play. You're literally not going to play. And it's not an argument. You can't even see those players being rotated. When those three players are fit, they play. It's as simple as that. And that's one of the reasons probably why they're not. They haven't been looking for a move. You never hear stories coming out that Liverpool Football Club, one of those front three aren't happy, keep getting substitute and not getting enough game time. If Liverpool are going to keep those players over the next 2 to 3 years and keep them out of the hands of the likes of whatever, Barcelona, Real Madrid, that's not to say like necessarily those clubs are in a better place than Liverpool, but it's like saying players, the draw kind of Barcelona and Real Madrid is always a big one for some players, not necessarily about money, etc. So to keep those players focused and happy, they've got to play. Those three have got to play every single time that they're fit. So every player knows that coming in. I'm amazed Timo Werner even would have considered getting on a flight and going to Liverpool to talk to Jurgen Klopp. Because the first question he asked Jurgen Klopp and his agent surely would have been, where do you see me playing in this team? And Jurgen Klopp would have said, well, I don't. You don't play. You don't play in this team with that front three spin. Now, what player of any quality, any stand in the game is going to sign for Liverpool, the greatest football team as they are, knowing that you're not going to play? You're just going to have to wait for a fair share of the games. It's as simple as that. Every player,
is there no room for somebody to take Firmino's place? Who, like Firmino, is obviously an excellent player, but seems a little bit low on confidence at the moment.
Oh no, I wouldn't look over a game or two, and certainly not at the moment, Jared, in terms of where Liverpool are, league being won and focus being a little bit. For me, I make an argument Firmino's become even more key to that Liverpool team over the past 12 months. The type of player he is, how he operates, Jared, how he drops off, links things up, opens those spaces for the other two to run in behind. He's the perfect foil for kind of Mane and Salah, how they want to play. They want to run in behind all the time, run into those spaces. That's where they want to operate. And Firmino's game complements that. He understands that. So he's prepared to drop off, drag centre-halves under the ball, open those spaces up. And it's not just that. He's prepared to drop off. Technically, he's excellent as well, playing on the half-turn, his link-up play. And he's actually, for me, Jay, is actually finishing. I've been most impressed with his finishing to the extent where before the lockdown, I was looking at him. Remember the World Club final before Christmas? And I was thinking to myself, do you know what? If a chance fell to Liverpool forward at the moment in terms of, they needed to go, whether it was for the Champions League or whatever, Firmino's probably the one. For me, the one is the player who shows real composure in front of goal inside the penalty box, and has been this season. That scenario of the game has actually improved. He wasn't seen as a prolific goal scorer when he first came to the football club, but he's the one, just as much as the other two lads. If a chance fell in front of the box, he's the one showing the composure, having the extra touch, lifting the ball over the goalkeeper. His finishing is as good as the other two. So I'd actually argue the opposite. I'd argue Firmino has actually become more important in terms of how Liverpool, that front three, functions over the past year or so. Yeah. So they're pretty much untouchable. The only reason, again, you'll see Liverpool spend 100 million on the top class forward-thinking player, whether it's Sancho or somebody else, it'll have to be one out and one in. One of those players will have to go to accommodate one of these higher profile, top heavy signings to come into the football club. It's as simple as that. In the meantime, you just supplement those players as best you can. And again, for me, the answer is within the squad in the shape of Origi, Minamino, Oxlade-Chamberlain, and even young Harvey. And I'm pleased for him because it means more opportunity for those young players to kind of develop and bloom within the football club.
And Rhian Brewster coming back on loan, from loan as well, is another one. And just a final point then, before we wrap. This morning, actually, Christian Falk, the journalist with Bild, who's on top of a lot of transfer news, has actually tweeted that Kai Havertz will ask his club, Bayer Leverkusen, to sell him this summer, and he's included at Chelsea in the tweet. You do wonder if perhaps Liverpool's hand might be forced because Chelsea have already gazumped them on one big transfer this summer. Could Liverpool make a special dispensation to splash the cash on Kai Havertz? So that'll be one to watch over the next couple of weeks. Kenny, great stuff. So one change for Liverpool. The depth chart only needs one addition, really. We'll do it again same time next year where perhaps more additions need to be done. Kenny, cheers.
Cheers, lads.